John Emmett, he says it feels like Sailing Illustrated is now a daily event.
I know.
Hi, John. John's got another nice report. It's not what you think, as I said here in the show notes. It's who's going to win, but it's not what you think he's talking about. Cool segment from John today. Alistair Murray, hello, Mr. President. He's in Mettung down there at his holiday home outside of Melbourne. Joe Cool, on time. Live is best. Christopher Gillingham, I wonder how nicely dressed he is again today. He's in Loughborough. Okay. Graham Sweeney in Chile, Shetland, Scotland, as usual. And Thierry de Jongs in SoCal. Stingrays up in Seattle, up near where Ben Remacher is coming to us from as we get this one across the starting line. Welcome, everybody. Hello, everybody. Live from Studio B here in San Francisco in the Marina District at the Beach Street Yacht Club at show number 772 for Tuesday, the 15th of October. We got a great guest with us. Ben Remacher is standing by up in west or north. I guess it is North Vancouver. And we'll get to Ben in a sec. Nice to have him on. It's been a couple hundred shows since Ben's been on. Julia, how are you? Julia, I trust you're well?
Oh, I am.
You don't sound enthused.
No, I'm not.
Why not? What are you grumpy about today?
Oh, there are lots of little things.
Well, I hope not. It's a great day.
Yes, and it's going to be terrific by the time this show's over.
What do you have in your coffee?
Ooh.
You got some something nice in the coffee again.
I do.
Okay, let's.
Bourbon cream.
A little bourbon cream. I'm Tom, your host. Julie, of course, your co-host. Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club. Welcome to all of you for this show. We got lots of folks on here. Rob Fry in Auckland, Fritz Mueller in Miami, Clark Chapin, really one of our key guys here, Super Fozy, is in Plymouth, Michigan, my home state. David James across the bridge. I was very much looking forward to Cows. I think he means as the venue for AC38. I am not looking forward to Jeddah. Well, David, we'll talk about that a little bit. Maybe it will not be Jeddah. Maybe it'll be someplace else in the Middle East like Bahrain or Dubai or Abu Dhabi. Pedro Foiling Sailor, reading up the chat here, is saying hello from Sydney. Alan Long from Pilsen, CZ. Is that like the Czech Republic? Alan, well, welcome to you. David Price. The Priceys are still in Barcelona, along with their daughter Olivia, no doubt, and their son Harry, who was coaching that fine women's team from Australia. Jeffrey Talbot is on. Jeff, nice to see you. Jeffrey, Tiberius CX and on. Adrian Gray from the Royal Western Yacht Club in Plymouth in the UK. Nice to have you on, Adrian. Long time. Okay, here we go. Jeff Kitson, and did I mention there's Julia? That's a foxy lady.
Oh, yeah.
He's complimenting your scarf, as did Ben Remacher in the, just when we did a quick tech check with him, Julia.
You got to keep the fans happy.
Where's that scarf from?
St. Francis Yacht Club.
St. Francis Yacht Club.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. Let's get into it just to check here on our upcoming schedule, because with these early morning watch parties,
Yes.
which we will gear up again tomorrow. It's breezy today, and the Brits are out sailing, one hears. It's breezy today in Barcelona. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow, but they have scheduled tomorrow races 5 and 6. So we'll get up early. We'll do show 773. We'll do a 0500 Pacific Daylight Time, which of course is 0800 on the East Coast. It's 1200, 12 noon UTC. Then we'll have a reserve day again on Thursday. Today is a reserve day. Thursday is also a reserve day. If they lose racing tomorrow, there'll be racing on Thursday. I'm sure Ian Murray's keen to keep this on schedule, as you in the Commonwealth would say. Friday, 2 more races scheduled. We'll go live at 0500 for another watch party. I don't think, I'm not 100% sure, Julie and I haven't talked, but I don't think we'll do a show on Friday because we got shows, it looks like, Thursday maybe, but for sure Friday morning and again Saturday morning. It's just too much for me to try to put a show together and go live. So that's the thought now, is no show on Friday. Keep an eye on our Facebook pages. I'll put announcements up there because we will be back at it again probably Saturday morning unless the Brits wrap it up on Friday. Remember, it's first to win 7. They're up 4-0, as you all know. And that is how things stand going forward here in the 37th edition of the Cup. Speaking of which, bravo Zulu to a lot of folks in Barcelona last night. Julia, do you recognize this venue?
No.
It's a fabulous spot. I've been there for a cocktail party back in the day. It was a World Sailing back when it was IWARU or ISAF. We had a cocktail party in this beautiful venue, which was last evening in Barcelona, was the venue for the America's Cup Hall of Fame inductions. That is the Maritime Museum of Barcelona and includes a nearly full-scale model of that famous ship. Do you recognize that ship? Here's a clue. That's a scale model of it on a much smaller basis, obviously.
Well,
still no luck.
Gotta be it.
This is an amazing venue. That is the Real, the Spanish for the word royal, of course. It was a Spanish galley and the flagship of Don Juan of Austria in the Battle of Lepanto in 1571.
Of course, I should have recognized.
You should have known that, Julia. And of course, neither you, I mean, as old as we are, even you and I weren't around in 1571. Here's that battle. It was a famous battle, and there's a sailing connection. Do you see those ships? Do you see all those galleys? Do you see what's coming off the side of those galleys?
Oars.
Exactly. The Battle of Lepanto was a naval engagement that took place on the 7th of October. This is not our day in history. That's going to be another topic today. 7th of October, 1571, when a fleet of the Holy League, a coalition of Catholic states arranged by Pope Pius V, inflicted a major defeat on the fleet of the Ottoman Empire in the Gulf of Patras. The Ottoman forces were sailing westward from their naval station in, where were they? In Greece. And the Holy League was sailing east from Messina in Sicily. In the history of naval warfare, Lepanto marks the last major engagement in the Western world to be fought almost entirely between rowing vessels, namely the galleys and the, how do you say that, galleasses? Galleasses?
I don't know.
Which were the direct descendants of ancient warships, the Trireme warships. And if you go down to the last sentence, over the following decades, the increasing importance of galleon and the line of battle tactic would displace the galley as the major warship of its era, marking the beginning of the age of sail. This was a big deal, this Lepanto.
Yeah.
More than a military victory, Lepanto was a moral one. For decades, the Ottoman Turks had terrified Europe, and the victories of Suleiman the Magnificent caused the Christian Europe serious concern. The defeat at Lepanto further exemplified the rapid deterioration of Ottoman might under Selim II, and Christians rejoiced at this setback for the Ottomans. So this was a big deal for Christian Europe and actually for modern Western Europe. This battle fought in galleys, rowing. Bloody hell, in 1571. That is a main feature. Back to the museum now. Do you know what that is for extra credit? Also in the museum. The Museo Maritimo de Barcelona. That's one of Columbus's ships.
I was going to say it's a Spanish galleon.
It is. Well done. That is the Santa Maria, which was Cristobal Colon's flagship. For extra credit, you remember the other names of the other two boats?
Pinto and Santa Maria.
Nina.
Oh, Nina.
Pinta,
Pinta,
and the Santa Maria. Well done, almost. Close, close, but no cigar. In any event, this was the venue last night for this. I wasn't there, obviously, but it was a fabulous event by all reports, and I've heard from a number of our FOSI overnight.
Magnificent. Is that it?
And this morning. And as I say, I've been in that museum, not for a function like this. We had a small cocktail there during some kind of a meeting we had in Barcelona many years ago, connected with World Sailing. Last night, it was the venue for the America's Cup Hall of Fame, the 2024 induction. There were lots and lots of FOSI there. You will recognize some of them, Lynn Whipple on the right, and John Marshall, who's an America's Cup inductee, and Vice Commodore Clare there, third from the left. Tom Whidden, still the Major Domo at North Sails. He was there, and of course, an AC Hall of Famer as well. Bird and Dyer Jones and Chip Whipple, New York Yacht Club entourage there. Here are the inductees last night. On the left is the esteemed Josh Belsky, then the late, great Bob Fisher,
Oh, good.
Kevin Shoebridge, and Juan Vila, the navigator extraordinaire from Spain. They've all had a major role in the Cup, all well-deserved inductees. Billy Lynn, who's the president, executive director of the Hall of Fame, longtime friend. I've known him since he was literally born. What a great group, he said. We have a journalist, a pitman, a navigator, and a Genoa trimmer, who are all among the best in the world at what they do or did. And their home countries have all played a pivotal role in the history of the Cup. Bill Lynn wanted to thank the selection committee for their hard work and for giving us 4 excellent new members of the Hall of Fame. By the way, there's over 100 now in the Hall, which is in Bristol, Rhode Island, if you're ever there north of Newport. The only tough part is that the fish, won't be there for what promises to be an unforgettable celebration in Barcelona. Fish is, as you all know, is a FOSI and has been on this show any number of times. Great journalist and historian about the Cup. Nice to see him recognized.
Indeed, he'd be pleased to.
I think you're absolutely right, Julia. Recognized, what do you call it when you recognize somebody after they've died?
Post-mortem.
Post-mortem, indeed. Okay, now there's one other presentation last night we should make note of. You know this medal, Julia? We've talked about this on the show, I think, once before, maybe in passing. This is the Sir Richard F Sutton Medal for Spirit of Friendly Competition. This was a Hamish Ross, Dr. Hamish Ross, another one of our FOSI. This was his brainchild some years ago. Decided that in addition to inducting people into the Hall of Fame, there ought to be this guy. We won't go into the history now, but Sutton did a very sportsmanlike thing back, way back, 100 plus years ago in the Cup. Hamish said, let's award a medal in his name and his honor, which they have done. And last night it was presented to Louis Vuitton, Malatier. And that was in recognition of LV's longtime contribution to the Cup since '83 with the Challenger Selection Series. And then, of course, they dropped out there for a bit and then are back in, not only this time as the sponsor of the Challenger Selection Series for the Louis Vuitton Cup, but also the overall presenting partner of the 37th edition of the Cup. So bravo to LV for their, and I think this was a smart idea too, awarding the Richard F Sutton Medal to them in the spirit of friendly competition. Last night was accepted by their CEO.
Yeah.
Julia?
Sir.
Do you think that was a good idea?
Yes, I do.
It does. I think it was well-deserved and very popular. Again, apparently a hell of a nice night. It was sold out, too. They had a great turnout, and bravo to everybody involved, especially the inductees.
Yes.
Julia, what are we celebrating today?
God, I don't know.
I used the word in the intro.
Oh, I don't remember.
We are celebrating National Grouch Day, Grouchy, Grumpy Day. That's why I said in the show notes, we're celebrating TFE at 0500 when I first get on here. I've been a little grumpy sometimes when I'm getting us on the air and others are being crotonic or I'm just being crotonic. I can't even blame it on a hangover anymore, Julia.
I know.
Since I stopped drinking a year ago. Hard to believe. National Grouch Day, it's a very simple thing. It's the one day of the year when it's a little bit more acceptable to let that bad-tempered side show. Enjoy the fun of being prickly and crusty in celebration of National Grouch Day. Julie, you've never been grouchy, ever.
No, I haven't.
You are the best-humored person I know. I'm sure Ben is also very good-natured. We'll get to Ben in just a second. But one of the reasons, Julie, I think that you are in such a fine Fettle, at least today, the last couple shows,
Yes.
is because of this. Clayton Emblee's
yes.
Buffalo Trace Distilleries Bourbon Cream. We poured some of that in your coffee again today.
Yes.
This has become the unofficial sponsor. I'm sure, Julia, that is better than putting in Bailey's in your coffee.
For the moment, it is.
For the moment. I mean, anything's better than nothing, right? Thanks, Clayton Embley, for sending us that bottle. I think he's going to send us some more since it's so popular with you, Julia. Let's check in here as we do the last slide here in this pre-show sequence here, the A block. We really do appreciate all of you who give us $1 or $2 or $5 or more per month via patreon.com/join/sailing illustrated. You keep us on the air. You keep our studio working and our software up to date. I had to do a little software update this morning with Ben, just to be sure he's going to be working, and he will be. And look at the quality of that image, Julia. Wait till you hear the audio when we get Ben on here in a sec. Andy Cox, a bit early for some fortified coffee, Julia.
I just couldn't help it.
I asked her if I prepare her coffee, or shall I say that the barista, the Beach Street Yacht Club barista, prepares your coffee. And I asked you if you wanted some in it.
Oh, yes, because I needed a little this morning. I was not motivated.
You were grouchy at the start. I've never seen you grouchy. Claire Harrington's not grouchy. She was at that party last night, said it was marvelous, said it was a fabulous evening. And maybe just 2 more days, John Emmett, of the America's Cup. Could be. And Alex Hayworth making a pithy comment about the outhaul on the British boat. My kingdom for an AC-75 outhaul that actually works. Yes, the reports behind the scene, as Alex Hayworth very well dialed into that British team, saying that they're having some problems with the tension on the foot of their main, the outhaul. Pedro Foiling said, I know how you feel, Julia. Tom will get us through this. I hope. Adrian Gray, John Emmett, Joe Holtzman. Hello, Joe, up in Colorado. And David James says he thinks that Julia and I have attended every America's Cup together since 1987. Wow, Julia. Any other big comments here? Jody Shields is on. It is early in the morning in Sydney, 7:17 up in Wangi. Come on, Tom, where is your commitment to drinking? Yeah, Yarvahe knew that was the Maritime Museum. By the way, any of you ever get to that Maritime Museum, I commend it to you. It's a fabulous place in Barcelona.
I only really tried to get in it once, and I mistimed it or something.
Well, and I would have never, I'm not much of a tourist, but because they said, we're going to have a cocktail there. So I went, and I otherwise probably would have never been there. Hey, we're delighted to have Ben Remacher with us. He is the class manager of the 49er and FX classes, and also the NACRA 17 class. Please welcome from North Vancouver, Ben Remacher. Ben, nice to have you on the show.
Hi, Julia. Hi, Tom. Hi, all the fozy out there. Great to be here.
It's been something, Clark Chapin will know, but it's been something like 200 shows since we last had you on. It was in the 500s, so that's a couple of years ago. Must have been during the Olympics, right? Or maybe just after the Olympics. We were talking about Olympic classes, something. You remember what?
Yeah, something like that. It's been a little while. Actually, September marked the 12-year anniversary of me taking over as class manager of the 49er as we introduced the FX to the Olympic scene, and then 8 years as NACRA 17 manager. So it's been a good journey coming through here.
You are too young to have been class manager for 12 years already. And one of the reasons I like Ben so much, Julia, is because he's a hockey coach. He's not only a hockey player,
be all bad. Yeah.
But he's a hockey coach. If we could make him a banjo player, he'd be, and a sailor. I mean,
well, maybe he is. Are you a banjo player?
I got my kids a ukulele, but I can't say I'm a banjo player.
Well, that's close.
Close. He was coaching his daughter's hockey team this morning when we did our tech check. So, Ben, you've been at the forefront of the Olympics class, what's the word I want? The class action within world sailing, and the classes committee that makes recommendations to the council on what classes to use for the Olympics. It looks like the 49er and the FX and probably the NACRA are very very secure going forward. Their recent additions to the Olympics. Do you want to say anything about Marseille and the most recent Olympics and how your classes fared and how some of the others did or did not do quite so well?
Yeah, we just had the Olympics. We saw some great racing from Marseille. The three classes I manage got the full complement of races. So, I guess we could call it a bit of a victory, but in all, got me pretty fired up because some of the race management stuff actually did impact on the racing, which is, I suppose, rule number one in running regattas is to make sure that the results are always determined on the water. And there was some stuff that happened behind the scenes, maybe not obvious to everyone, but obvious to us in the Olympic scene that got me pretty fired up, and that's why I decided to run for president of World Sailing.
So you have, in fact, run for president. Good for you. We need some younger guys and gals involved in the hierarchy. You're all of what? Are you 40 years old yet?
I've been growing my beard for this role, put a little grays in there, so I'm 45.
45.
But 35 years into my Olympic pathway and Olympic career here, so doesn't feel like I'm too inexperienced. It's sailing is a passion. I mean, we've got such a sport, such a vast amount of passion for our sport, and we all get fired up when we see things that we want to improve. And I'm no different than the rest of us Fozy out there who want to see the best done for our sport and for our sailors. And it's contrast that with what we see in the America's Cup right now. It's really satisfying to see all these guys that used to beat up on me on the race course out there leading the world. The America's Cup is still the pinnacle of our sport, and we see a lot of the hot shots that came through before and after me getting a chance to show off their skills in the front of the fleet. The 49er class has been a leader in the sport of sailing, since it came into the Olympics. Guys like the McKee brothers and who am I forgetting here? They all came down from Australia to really try and evolve how sailing went from long races, Finn Gold Cup courses, 2-hour races, one a day, and they tried to make it exciting the way the 18-foot skiffs were. That's why the 49er came in. And that group of sailors reframed the races into basically what we see in front of us today. The 49er class has been running 30-minute races now since 2000 or since before 2000, and windward-leeward straight up and down. They've added boundaries, which we did a lot of pioneering work on in around the 2010 cycle. And that's the format we see at the pinnacle of our sport, and it's not surprising that we see a bunch of the 49er sailors up at the front and FX sailors winning the Women's America's Cup there. So it's been an exciting time in the last 12 years. It does march quickly, but also slowly. Those of us who are impatient to see progress remain impatient. But we can do better as a sport, but we still made a lot of progress.
First question already in before we get to some of your more famous 49er sailors who are sailing in Barcelona and currently winning the Cup, in fact. Why, Stingray asked, just south of you in Seattle, why is it called the 49er class? How'd that get it? What's behind that name?
Yeah, the length is 4.99 meters to circumvent some of the 5-meter tax rules that certain countries have. So, and then, just became 49ers because it sounded cooler than 4.99 or 4.99. But yeah, it's the length of the boat.
Yeah, Rob Fry, a lot of the Fozy on here knew that, but it's a good question. But the more interesting answer is that it's to get under 5 meters because of some of the laws on trailering and so on, particularly in Europe, but in other countries.
Yeah, I think Japanese import laws are 100% tax on yachts or boats over 5 meters. So another example of where 4.99 came from.
What country?
Japan.
Japan, 100% tax. Okay. Well, let's talk about these gentlemen in the 49er class, all recent since 2012 gold medalists, at least the three on the left.
No, Diego Botin just won here in Marseille. So those are the 4 most recent gold medalists. No one's ever won a gold medal twice in the 49er class, but but those that win gold medals tend to do pretty well.
So start with Nathan in 2012 and take us through what they've done and you're racing against these guys and what you think of these guys.
Yeah, Nathan was the hot shot on the block, and back in my day, he had just won 4 youth worlds, 2 in a 420 and 2 in a 29er, and then he joined the 49er class. And I think he might have spent some time in a 470 or something. That was when he was a kid. And then he joined the class, and everyone's buzzing around the boat park. And I think he came in the 50s in his first regatta, Europeans in Copenhagen there, but quickly moved up the fleet to contend for the gold medal in 2008, which he didn't manage to win. But he's, you see him now commentating, talking. He's always been a leader in the class, very good at explaining things. And, we went down and hung out with him and his family on the Lake Macquarie a couple times down in Australia back in the day. So that was always fun. And I think he served as VP of the class for a little while. So he's had a big involvement in 49er all the way through. And then I think right after 2012, he brought in Pete and Blair but it was around 2011. He brought Pete and Blair in as their training partners. Australia-New Zealand connection. They could go training in the Northern Hemisphere winter. And I think he was quoted something after saying, if I knew they were going to get so good so fast, we never would have taught them so much. But
That's nice.
But Pete and Blair then took the mantle, and they won every regatta from 2013 to 2016, including the gold medal. A feat I don't think has ever been repeated or possibly will be. So they were dominant. Blair was more involved in the class than Pete, I got to say. So Blair was always working behind the scenes with me, but Pete was always friendly in the boat park as well, and obviously a fantastic sailor. I remember after they won the Worlds in 2016, so this is heading into the games, we all had a big party, as you do, that night. And then the next morning, we're there at the venue cleaning up, and he and Blair were there tuning their masts, getting everything dialed in, choosing their equipment. Real early in the morning the next day. So they had fun on the fleet, but they also were always working hard. And then Dylan won the gold in a spectacular finish, probably the closest Olympic finish I can remember in Tokyo 2021 or 2020. And he and I raced against each other quite a bit, actually. I don't know if you know, but I was doing my campaigning from England and basically lived adjacent to Weymouth, so I was down there all the time. And Dylan was a young whippersnapper when I was leaving the fleet as a competitor. And what a passionate sailor, always working hard, served as VP also for a number of years on the class, and been a leader ever since. He's so passionate about sailing, had a long journey between 2008 to win a gold medal in 2021. And that excitement you see of him crossing the finish line to win gold, I can't believe it. It's so genuine. Those are the emotions of the Olympics that get people going, is when people fulfill their dreams, and couldn't be happier for him on that front.
Well, tell us a little bit about Senor Botin and his win in Marseille. He was dominant.
Yeah, well, there was 5 people that still could win the gold medal on the final day, so a closer finish than has sometimes been the case when Pete and Nathan won. But I never got a chance to race against him, but he's a gentleman of the fleet. And he, is always contributing to the meetings and putting his opinions forward and helping us out. Certainly when we did the sail changes and stuff, he was always helping us out on that front. And a real class guy, lovely person to be around in the fleet, but I never got the pleasure of being beaten by him, unfortunately.
Okay. John Emmett knows these guys as well. He said, I was watching Dylan get the gold. I sat next to Emma, of course, his wife. He's talking Emma. I think he means Emma Outeridge. I don't know for sure. Jody Shields, who you must know, Ben, in Wanji, the 49er training camps. You're nodding your head. Yes, I see. The 49er training camps in Wanji are legendary. Have you participated in those training camps up there with Jody in Wanji?
Well, it was only down the winter of 2007, 2008. We spent some time on the lake with Nathan and Goobs back in the day, and so we sailed off the front lawn of the 16-footer club there. What a beautiful spot. Got to bring your protection to keep the flies away. But on the water, it was fantastic. I think Emmett, their coach, was dismayed at our crappy sails that we had brought to the training camp. So I'm not sure we could push them as hard as they ultimately wanted. But we stayed with the Outeridge family and the Austin family, and it was good times down there. I can see good piece of the world.
Indeed. And I know Leo Takahashi, who's another Fozy who was sailing 49er before he got dragged into, and I'm sure not kicking and screaming happily, dragged into Emirates Team New Zealand. And he's been with, he was the helm on the youth team there. And I got a warm spot in my heart for him because of the Governor's Cup and any of the other kids that have sailed in Gov Cup down at Balboa Yacht Club, of course. Now let's talk, before we move forward and talk more about ISAV, your class just put in the last 4 days, put out a video about these, well, 3 guys, and I thought it was worth playing now. Let's have a look.
In the world of Olympic sailing, the 49er class has become the proving ground for the sports elite. These boats are fast, technical, and unforgiving. And for the gold medalists in this class, Olympic success is just the beginning of a much bigger journey. In 2012, Australia's Nathan Outridge claimed gold in the 49er at the London Olympics, showcasing his skill and mastery of the high-performance boat.
It was a lot of fun. It just means that the last 4 years of my life haven't been wasted. As Nate said earlier, we've won 3 world championships and we've never been beaten in Weymouth, and this was always the goal, and it's great to have achieved it.
4 years later, in 2016, New Zealand's Peter Burling stormed to gold in Rio. Burling's calm demeanor and sharp tactical mind made him a standout sailor long before the Olympics, but it was his incredible performance in Rio that solidified his status as one of the best. Burling and his teammate Blair Tuke were untouchable, winning with a race to spare, a rare feat in Olympic sailing. And in Tokyo 2020, it was Great Britain's Dylan Fletcher who claimed the ultimate prize, standing atop the podium in one of the tightest 49er Olympic competitions. These 3 sailors, Outridge, Burling, and Fletcher, have not only mastered the 49er at the Olympics, but they've carried that success into the professional sailing world. Now, they face each other once again in the America's Cup.
It's the Spanish we're on board with there, Diego Botín.
While Diego Botín, Spain's newest 49er gold medalist in 2024, has not yet joined the America's Cup battle, he's already made his mark in the professional world, winning the 2024 Sail GP Championship.
Diego Botín and company delivered in the most pressure-packed situation on a day in Spanish sports history.
These sailors are all part of a new generation that's redefining the sport, where Olympic success leads directly to the highest levels of professional sailing. Whether it's the America's Cup or Sail GP, their Olympic roots have given them the foundation to compete and win at the highest level. Want to see where it all began? Take a look at the 2016 49er World Championship livestream videos where these 4 Olympic gold medalists, Outridge, Burling, Fletcher, and Botín, competed head-to-head. 3 of them are now facing off in the America's Cup finale, but their epic battles started right here in the 49er class.
Great video. Well done. Bravo Zulu to the class and to the class manager, whoever that crouton is. He must be pretty good, don't you think, Julia?
Oh, undoubtedly.
So
Well,
I asked you a question. There's lots of, you have to go back. Julia always reminds us to go back and
Read the comments.
read the questions in the chat because there's lots of great questions. And just lots of great questions and comments too, because everybody, of course, everybody in the modern history of the sport knows these guys, at least to some degree, and certainly knows of them. Let me ask you this. Jimmy Spithill, Ben Ainsley, Francesco Bruni, were they just at a huge disadvantage because they're from big, heavy, slow displacement boats, the Finn, or whatever.
I'm pretty sure Francesco Bruni sailed 49er for a bit, actually. It was before my time. I think in the 2000 quad he might have. You can check his CV. But no, I mean, listen, there's don't forget Tom Slingsby. There's lots Goodison. There's lots of good sailors in all the classes. Like Tita's on their team too, and he's been winning. So it's not that there's not great sailors.
Hang on. You're talking in shorthand. Tita, the Italian NACRA 17.
Yeah, two-time gold medalist. He's on Team Italy as one of their reserve helmsmen, along with the young Opti sailor. Our sport is full of great sailors. The point isn't here to be a 49er commercial. The point is to just talk about having fair competitions and great competitions be the foundation of both our Olympic campaigning, Olympic sailing, and then ultimately the pro sailing, and how it's all linking together in what I think is a really cohesive way for the sport. Guys like Ben Ainsley, they're obviously fantastic sailors, and you can come from a lot of places. But what the 49er sailers and the class does is put people in equal boats into a very intense playing field. And if you can survive and thrive in that environment, you've got a shot just about anywhere. And that's what I think the selections for these big cut boats has proven. In that shot, actually, we left out poor Jonas Warrer, the 2008 gold medalist. So in that regatta in 2016, there were five 49er gold medalists racing there. Two of them hadn't won gold medals yet, or three of them hadn't won gold medals yet, but they're all there in the top 7 of the regatta. If you want to get good at sailing, you got to be out racing the best. And the place where the best people have been most consistently has been in that fleet for a while, and now it's showing on the world stage.
Yeah, Jody Shields is saying that Francesco Bruni was top 3 in the Moth Worlds in Frio. John Emmett confirming that Bruni did moth sailing. Let me ask another question. Jimmy's announced his retirement, apparently from the Cup. Apparently Francesco Bruni is also retiring. I haven't seen it or heard it firsthand, but I'm told that he has, in the Italian press, announced his retirement. I can't believe Sir Ben will be on the boat after this one, maybe in a manager role, maybe Jimmy will be. Are they too old to be sailing these high-speed foiling boats at age, give or take, 40? And Francesco's north of 50, I think.
They're doing pretty well, so they're not too late yet. I mean, I don't know where the debate has been in your morning chats about where we are with the physicality of our sport versus the showcase, but that's always been a piece of the sport. Like, does experience count the most, or does your athleticism count the most, or how does it blend? And now the guys are playing video games there a little bit, but it's still that analysis of that pre-start with the New Zealanders getting the penalty and the pre-start, that came down to pretty split-second decision-making from all the crews involved. So, it's always a blend. Too old? Who knows? But it certainly doesn't seem like we're getting to the stage where it's going to be old people and on the sides. It's going to be the young group. Always is. Well,
you're a diplomat. Anyway, we might, if you don't get elected president of World Sailing, and we will talk about that next, but maybe you can be the Secretary General of the United Nations sometime in the future. If the Canadians can sort out the Canadians are having some problems with India right now, Julia, politically. We don't need to get into politics. Mm-hmm. Ben, let's talk about the presidential race. The World Sailing's got their AGM, their annual general meeting is coming up next month in November, it traditionally is, and this is the quadrennial presidential election. Once every 4 years, there's a presidential election. The current president is Kwan Hai Lee. He won in a highly contested presidential election. There were quite some number of candidates, including the previous president who stood and was defeated, the incumbent. He's from China. He was born in 1962. And according to Wikipedia, he was appointed Secretary General in 1997 and subsequently VP in 2005 of the Chinese Yachting Association. I don't think he's done a lot of sailing. I think he's been a bit of a party appointee. He was appointed as Director General of the China Water Sports Association in 2013, and that led to roles in the Asian Sailing Federation and also World Sailing, where he was elected president of World Sailing in November 4 years ago, 2020, after serving 8 years as a vice president with his first term ending here in 2024, and he is eligible to stand for one additional 4-year term, which he is doing. What do you think his chances are of being reelected, and should he be reelected?
The current board, which he leads, has done a good job of stabilizing the organization. No one was more critical than people who appeared on your show, Tom. I won't put words in your mouth, than where we were going financially in the last quad, and some of the missteps and perceived missteps of world sailing as they careened up to London and spent a bunch of money. And, this current group has stabilized the organization. The finances are stable. The CEO position is stable. And that's been really important. So those are, the accomplishments that they can stand behind pretty clearly. Updated constitution. But, my view is that standing still and being stable isn't enough. We need to push our sport forward through the Olympic movement, which, of course, World Sailing is responsible for. And I think having someone who's, been on the ground in the Olympic movement like I have on the front lines is a good blend of experience and youthful ambition that can push our sport forward at a time where we need it.
So you give him credit. You're not blaming him for the loss of sailing going out of the Paralympic Games, I suppose. That's a collective problem. Maybe the former non-sailing CEO had a bit, he deserves some of the credit or blame for that. But are you running for president, or are you going to support somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, in recent weeks, I've had a chance to meet the other candidates. At the time I applied, I wasn't sure who else was going to apply, if anyone. We've had some really strong vice presidents, none of whom decided to seek election as president. And with the performance there at the Olympic Games, I just decided that wasn't the status quo we needed. So I put my name in. I've since had a chance to sit down and meet with Philipe Roga virtually, who's running for president. He's a Finn sailor from just before my time. I think we might have overlapped briefly without knowing each other. And I've decided to withdraw my candidacy and put my support behind him. He seems to be a guy who knows the sport really well from a grassroots level. He really impressed me with his knowledge of the issues that we have at an Olympic level at the sport. And then he's also got a great CV in a bunch of other ways. And certainly, well, you'll go on. I didn't know his father very well, but his father was the head of the IOC for many years. So he knows the IOC inside out as well. And I just think that at this time, we should all rally behind him, including myself, and push his candidacy.
So you have not formally withdrawn. You are just today, for the first time on the show here, announcing your withdrawal. Is that right?
That's right, yeah. Even Philippe, I told him to tune in, but I didn't tell him why. So this will be news to him as well. We're not trying to play silly politics behind the scenes. I'm not endorsing a slate of VPs or anything like that. But I do think in this critical presidential race, we need a sailor on the ground who has a passion for pushing the sport forward, which he seems to, and someone who knows, intimately the issues that the people in the boat park are dealing with.
Well, I'm proud of you. I think you've done the right thing, and we've been talking about it. I didn't know for sure whether you were going to withdraw formally today or not, but let's talk a little bit about Philippe. I gathered some slides together because I knew we would at least be talking about him. That is his father, the late, great Jackie Roga, Dr. Jacques Roga, also obviously Belgian. They're both Belgian. And he passed in 2021, was the IOC president from 2001 to 2013. I actually knew him not really well, but I spent some time with him because when I was vice chairman of the events committee or the Olympic committee, whatever it was called then, the class committee, it wasn't the classes committee, the events committee, the chairman was also Belgian, Saidi Kleis, and I used to go over to Saidi's house in Belgium and Ghent. They all lived in Ghent, as did the Rogas. And we'd go over to Dr. Roga's house for dinner because Saidi knew him well, and Saidi had questions for me about the America's Cup, and Jackie Roga had questions for me about the America's Cup and his wife Anne, and so I spent several pleasant evenings with the two Roga kids, including Philippe. This is 25 years ago, I guess now. And the two Roga kids running around, also at the dinner table, very prim and proper and polite with us. So I've met Philipe, but again, I haven't seen him since quite some time ago when he was a kid. Dr. Roga, who was a surgeon, I think an orthopedic surgeon from memory, was a noted athlete in his own country. He was a 16-time Belgian national champion in rugby, as well as a one-time yachting world champion, I guess I don't know if that was in the Finn class. He did campaign a Finn, and he was also competing in the Finn class for 3 Olympics, representing Belgium in 68, 72, and 76. So Philipe, his son, has got yacht racing in his proverbial blood, in his veins, and his credentials I pulled off the World Sailing website just before we went to air. He started competitive sailing at age 10, represented Belgium at over 25 European and World Championships in these various classes, mostly one design. He's done a bit of offshore sailing in the Far 40 circuit, but sailed the Finn. He was a national champion in multiple countries. He's contributed a lot to the admin of sailing, as you can see here from this list, including as an active committee member within ISAF over now the better part of 25 years. He also started, if I remember well, he started the Athletes Commission within World Sailing. I think he was the founding member of that and maybe the first chairman. He's also been involved, because no doubt of his dad and and otherwise, in the Belgian Olympic politics. He was the chef de mission of Belgium's delegation to the Beijing Olympics in 2008. So he's been around and knows the sailing world as well as the Olympic world. He's had these specific roles within ISA. Yeah, there it is, initiator and host of the first Athletes Forum at the annual conference. Business-wise, the guy's the real deal. He's got a young family. He's only, 50-ish, give or take. He's got a master's in economics and a master's in management from the University of Ghent. And he's been in the tech world for over 30 years, so I think he is just north of 50. But he's now semi-retired, but he was the GM of Microsoft in the Low Countries, and then he was GM for Microsoft Portugal, then he was the COO of Microsoft China.
Wow.
So he was in China for 3 years, and then regional president for Microsoft Central and Eastern Europe, 36 countries. So he's gotten around the world, and he's multilingual, of course, and he's been a member of the executive committee of Vodafone and the CEO of Vodafone Germany for the last few years, and has just recently retired, which gives him some time, I guess, to take over as the volunteer president of World Sailing. Ben.
I trust that to be accurate. I don't know him in such intimate levels, but we had a nice call for probably an hour and a half last week. I can speak more to what I asked about him, which was more sailing related, and I can tell you that the issues he was dealing with when he was on their version of events committee back then are still the issues we deal with today, and he knows them inside out. And he's also, a proven operator in terms of at the corporate levels, and I think he'll do well.
Julia, you're a headhunter extraordinaire in your long and storied career, one of the first women at the top of your headhunting firm, and also heavily involved in St. Francis Yacht Club admin and politics. What do you think, at least on paper?
Looks terrific.
What do you think?
It looks terrific on paper.
Should we get him on the show?
Absolutely.
Why don't you call him up and see if he'll come on the show?
Okay.
Now, I haven't called him yet, but he knows I'm going to call. Gerardo Seeliger, who also ran last time, and who is a Finn, president emeritus of the Finn class, and knew Jackie Roga as well as Philipe, has been pushing quietly Philipe to come in and run for president, as has our Italian Fosi. Shall I name him?
That's not.
But a lot of people are suggesting that he's the right man for the job. And Gordon Smith says his CV tells you that he never stays long enough anywhere to actually do anything except gain promotion, which is a bit of a, I guess, a negative comment. Mm-hmm. the voting is all about the MNAs, and the question is whether the Chinese MNA can persuade enough other countries to support the incumbent, or whether other countries, including Europe, will get behind this European candidate. What do you think, Ben?
The politics is thick. I don't really operate at the political level that much, but I think the incumbent got voted in last time by a majority of countries, so there's obviously a level of support there that is.
He got voted out last time. The incumbent got voted out.
The current incumbent.
The current who will be, yes. Kwan Hai Lee.
The current president, he won the last time, so he's got support, and he hasn't made big errors. It's not like the narrative like last time where a bunch of people were up in arms. I'm up in arms a little bit because of some of the things that are going on at the Olympic level, but most people aren't paying as close attention. I think Philipe is a good candidate, and I'm sure will survive if he's defeated as well. There's a couple other 49er people involved. Rodion Luka is running for president from Ukraine. He's a 49er silver medalist, and Malev Strov is running for VP. He's the guy that put together the 49er class the way it is right now in the current modern format with a professional manager, and he's running for VP. So there's a lot of quality people running for VP, and they'll be on the board no matter what, or someone's going to be aboard no matter what. And we lost a couple critical VPs, Sarah Kenny and Marcus Spillane, who have been big leaders in the sport for the last little while. Neither of them has decided to rerun, and that's a bit of a troubling sign, I see. So we're going to need a strong slate of VPs to support whichever president gets elected.
Several of our FOSI are asking, will you run now for VP? Can you transfer your presidential candidacy over to vice president?
I cannot. I could have ticked both boxes when I signed up the applications, but as a working man, I also need my job. So that wouldn't be something that I'm able to do right now. But I also didn't really want to disturb the group of VPs, which I think many of which are very talented, that are applying for those positions. I think there's a lot of good candidates to select from, and that group will be pretty well stocked, hopefully, as long as the politics don't overrule things.
Andy Cox in Bermuda is saying, when Kwan Hai Lee was elected president of World Sailing, I recall reading something about a promise of big bucks support from the now defunct Evergrande Group. It was there was going to be big financial support from China. It was about the time that World Sailing finances were looking a bit rough. Maybe it was all a coincidence. No, he did seem to promise that, Andy Cox, but I think there was a quid pro quo, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, that part of that was moving the office from the UK to China.
There were two big votes that Kwan Hai led this quad that both were defeated, I think, unanimously by council. I can't promise if it was unanimous. One was to move the office or add a satellite office in China, or move the office to China. That was defeated. And the other one was to add Russian athletes to the games. Those were, I think, two initiatives that the current president was trying to endorse and didn't gain water with the organization. But I can tell you they took up an awful lot of bureaucratic and administrative time in those efforts, all for naught.
Okay, well, that's an interesting development. You are resigning from your presidential bid. You are, as they say here in the U.S., you never resign your candidacy. You suspend your candidacy just to keep your options open going forward. You suspend.
I'm going to withdraw my candidacy.
Oh, you're withdrawing. You're not suspending. You're withdrawing.
Yeah.
And you're throwing your support, though, it sounds like, behind Mr. Roga.
Yeah, possibly not wisely. We are vulnerable as classes, Olympic classes. We like to keep, it's not for me, it's for the sailors, to keep things going. So hopefully, people just take this for what it is, my opinion, and in good faith. But I think Philipe will do a good job. Okay,
well, I'm texted here. We're getting information under the door, over the door, through various electronic means. Luca Devoti says I am authorized to tell everybody about his support for Mr. Roga, Philipe Roga, as president.
Uh-huh.
So that's the latest on the president. Anything else coming up at the AGM? Olympic classes? Are there going to be any changes in the Olympic classes? What do you think of what happened in Marseille? Just give us your kind of thumbnail view, if you would, please, Ben.
There's lots of rumors floating around about quota cuts. So with 4 new team events and squash coming into the games, I think they've expanded the athlete total a little bit, but not enough to accommodate so many new competitions. So everyone's a little worried in sailing that we're going to have some of our athlete quota taken away. So we've been knocked down from about 420 to 330 since 2008. And if it goes any farther, it's going to put things in a tough spot. So we await the IOC's decision on our athlete quota, usually around mid-December. There's not too much critical going on within World Sailing other than the election at the upcoming AGM. But, there's a lot going on in terms of, how the Olympic series is run. There's a new director of events at World Sailing who is going to try again to put together the World Cup. So hopefully we can get, the ideal is that the Olympic sailors aren't just on the dole, so to speak, but they get some commercial backing, commercial support. Within the 49er class, Malav and Marcus put together a funding program where we could put on these live broadcasts. Like, it's pretty cool to be able to pull up a live broadcast of 5 Olympic champions racing from the 2016 World Championship all against each other. I know it's sort of less novel now, but we've been doing it since 2012 when it was really quite difficult. And we need to keep pushing forward. These are the best sailors in the world, in my view. They're certainly the sharpest at what they're doing. We saw, the Women's and the Youth America's Cup. Essentially, they were thrown out there in boats they didn't get a chance to practice in other than simulators, and didn't get the best of conditions, didn't get the full length of the series. And in the Olympic movement, there's no excuses for those. Everyone gets a chance to practice. Everyone gets a chance to bring their gear and really put their best effort in. And that's where you see, the best racing. I hope. It's always been my thesis that if the world could see it for what it is, they'd get on board. But it hasn't happened yet. But we shouldn't give up.
No changes in the Olympic events. John Emmett is saying in the comments, that's what I'm hearing as well. But are there going to be some changes to the equipment? A couple of minor changes in a couple of the classes?
There's a proposal from the IQ Foil women to reduce their sail size, potentially the men as well. I'm not 100% sure on that. We've got a movement within the FX to reduce the sail size a little bit, to get back down to a more average female weight. Not sure about anything other substantial. NACRA staying the same, ILCA staying the same, 470 staying the same. So, some minor stuff. That stuff's really not a big deal.
How about the formats? There was a lot of criticism of the formats for the kites and for the IQ foil with that crutonic system that they used in Marseille. There's a criticism from me.
Yeah, I think the formats will change. That's going to be on the floor for, I don't know if the decisions are going to be made in the AGM, but that's one of the things that set me off is there was a sort of a different course put in at the last minute for the 49er FX and Acra 17 finishes, which threw off some of the athletes and could have cost a gold medal. We saw tons of problems with the IQ foil, not so much the format, but the execution of the format. The IQ foil class put in a lot of protests really in a formal way about a year ahead of the games to try and get World Sailing to understand what they were trying to accomplish with their format and the best way to do it. And really, World Sailing told them we know better. And ultimately, that proved not to be the case. They made a real mess of things with their, that's why I was bringing up the 30-minute races. They had their heart set on going on a marathon around the Bay of Marseille. And in the end, it totally screwed up a whole day of Olympic racing, both for the broadcast and for a bunch of the fleets when there was finally wind, only to get those races abandoned too, as they sent them around an island that had no wind on the backside. So there was just, a real disconnect between those of us that run races and those at World Sailing who are trying to run the Olympics. And unfortunately, we weren't working as a team, which we could have been.
Offshore event, match racing event, are those in the cards at all for 2028 in Long Beach, or is that off the table?
I'll talk in general terms first. Like, I've wanted a second medal opportunity for our sailors for a long time now. And exactly what format, whether they go offshore, whether they go around the cans in a keelboat, whether it's match racing or team racing, it doesn't particularly bother me. But if we, the way the Olympics works is they want a really punchy TV broadcast. Like if you go and watch the snowboarding, they do a day of qualification and then they do the final. And, that's a pretty short experience for an athlete. But the thing about it is they have multiple events that they can compete in. So then they do one thing one day, and then the next day they might do the half pipe one day, and then the next day they do the big air, and it gets it exciting for the athletes and for the broadcast or the fans at home. And that's a little bit more the way I see it in sailing. Like they want us to shrink our events to have them punchier and more able to have the critical moments broadcast. But it doesn't add up to a 4-year campaign. But imagine if everyone got together and did a team race or a match race as their second medal opportunity, even if you're in the tuning boat in a big nation, that would be something you're contributing to. And I think, it would better display the variety of the diversity of our sport in a pretty entertaining way. So that's something I've always been behind. Within sailing as it stands right now, we are set for 2028. Maybe the quotas, or if we get a medal taken away, that could be interrupted. But, we got to think long term. We can't just think 4 years out.
Well, that's right. We got to start thinking now about Brisbane in 32. And it didn't take us that long when we put match racing into the Olympics for the 92 event in Barcelona. It didn't take us very long, but that's another story for another time, how we got to that. Julie, any other questions for Ben before we let him go? He's got another meeting. He's got to go pick up his daughter after school, I think.
That's important.
That's more important than gas bagging about our beloved sport. Julie, anything?
No, I think the whole question, which everybody's skirting, is still we're gearing the racing to TV and not a sport, and of course it is right now. But is it the ideal? No. Therefore, what do you do about it?
How about break dancing on the deck of a laser while sailing downwind? And of course, who would ask that but an Australian? You talk about Crutonic break dancers.
Oh, forget that. We can play pirates if we want to have fun. Sail around. Whoever gets the most paintballs and the other guys sail, they win. I mean, so if we want to get silly, we can get silly. But listen, it's got to be the goal to make our sport good enough to watch and good enough to participate in. I think there's a mix out there that can be done. And, these guys are running around. I remember Nathan Outteridge sleeping with 17 other Aussies in a 2-bedroom apartment in Palma, at his peak of his powers. Like, these guys aren't out there living it up. They're doing it for the passion, and to some extent that's okay, but
probably with Jody Shields refereeing right there in the middle of that group. Sounds like more like an orgy than a sailing.
No, these were all serious. It was all serious business, Tom. Those Aussies, but that's the reality there. We go up to Palma, sleep in the cheap hotels, drag our asses to the beach in the poor conditions because we want to get the cheap hotels, and it matters. If we can entertain the world in a way that I think the sport can be entertaining, then they'll find endorsement deals, they'll find prize money, and to give up on that isn't the right thing. But we do have to get it right.
Speedos and bikinis. Strippers, forget the break dancers. Graham Sweeney is saying, okay. Cutlasses and boarding, I'm down with it. I'm in favor of it, Fog Machine says. Okay, well, we've beaten that to death, no pun intended. I've got the crystal ball lady up here for you, Ben, because I always ask, and half you watch the watch parties at 0500. I can barely get Gordon Smith or Graham Sweeney to. They always talk about what's in their heart, not what they really think is going to happen. Julie and I put our you-know-whats on the table here. Who's going to win the Cup and in how many races? I
think New Zealand's going to take it and Britain gets a race in there somehow, but it's not looking good right now, is it? Great semifinal match. Maybe this one will turn around like it did back in 13?
2013 was a once in a maybe the history of the Cup, not just once in a lifetime. And of course, I was in that movie, and I was rewriting the Commodore's concession speech. Thank you, Julia. Every day, Steve Gruber saying ETNZ in 7. We're going to do that at the end of the show. We'll get everybody's latest views. I'm still on 7-2. Julia's on 7-4. She's more optimistic even than I that the Brits will get a win. It's looking pretty grim, but we'll see. You never know. You never count out Sir Ben. It's not over till it's over.
Maybe it'll be different if the wind picks up. It's been pretty light air so far, so maybe the performance curve will be different in the higher winds.
Well, it's breezier today, so one hears, and it's not predicted to be, sort of the same thing tomorrow, 6 to 10, maybe 11 tomorrow, so it's back to the normal regime. And of course, statistically, the later it gets in October, in Barcelona, have you sailed in Barcelona?
Yeah, I did a couple of regattas in Barcelona. Yeah, wavy when we were there.
Yeah, well, I can tell you about 92. I've talked about it ad nauseum on here on the show about how, I was in an umpire boat out there bouncing around in a jury boat, but it was a bigger sea state is predicted for tomorrow's racing. John Emmett is reminding us, and they've got a pretty good sea state there today, and it's going to continue to blow overnight. So we shall see. Thank you very much, Ben. Much appreciated to have you on the show. It's been too long.
Yes, indeed. Nice to see you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your show.
Okay, you take good care. Ciao for now. Okay, that, Julia, was good fun. That is
Yes.
Ben Remacher up in North Vancouver. It's just a suburb, really, of Vancouver. A beautiful town, Vancouver is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Canada. I put a video on my Facebook page just before he went to air. I thought about running it on here, but it's old. It's like from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And some guy in a tux with tails skates out onto the rink with a mic, and he's an beautiful singer. And he's a skater. He's I got hockey skates on, and he's skating around. He's going to sing the Canadian national anthem. So he's It's on my Facebook page, those of you who want to go have a look at it. It's only a couple minutes long. So he's skating around singing, "Oh, Canada," and he's holding the mic up, and the crowd's joining. And it's good fun. He skates around between the teams, around the goal nets at either end. And then he comes back to center ice, and he must have lost his focus because there's a red carpet on the center ice where somebody's probably a VIP is going to come out and do the ceremonial dropping of the cup at the start of the game.
And he didn't see it.
After he's done singing the national anthem. And no, he did not see it. And he trips on it, but to his everlasting credit, he did not miss a note. He's down on his knees, he's on the ice, he's in a tux and tails, got the mic up, and he's still...
That's worth... I'll go look at it.
You got to love Canada. You got to love Ben and the Canadians. And of course, my wife is Canadian. Daughter's half Canadian. Meg is technically half Canadian. Okay, Julia, that's our little segment there with Ben. Let's get on to the Coach's Corner, because we're an hour and 7 minutes into this show.
Yes.
And we haven't heard from John Emmett via video yet. He's plugged in plenty of comments over there, and my suggestion is that, oops, I didn't want the clocks. My suggestion is that any presidential candidate should serve as a VP first. I'm not so sure about that, John. In fact, I don't agree at all, but John's going to talk about who's going to win, but it's not the winning or it's not the event that you think. Before we get to that, I just want to congratulate him formally. I don't think we've done so on the show. We did in one of the watch parties early in the morning. He did, in fact, in Villamora, win his discipline, win his category in the ILCA European Masters Championship, the Laser 6, Bravo Zulu. He once again came through, as he often does.
Yes. Superb
sailor that he is. And it's a lot to clap about, no pun intended. John the Legend. So Bravo Zulu, John, and here's what his video report is today.
Hi Tom, Julia and all the Fosey. So after this Masters Europeans, it's time for a well-deserved break. Even if we only got 4 races in, that rest and recovery it's important. So I've been going back through some of my childhood memories, and you probably see my recent reels about Weirwood Sailing Club and the sad situation that we have there. But I'm back now in the farm area, and as promised, I thought I would take you for a game of poo sticks. But first of all, if we look very carefully, what have we got here? Piglet's house. But I don't think he's in. I've always been a big believer in going for walks. I mean, I was lucky enough to grow up on a farm, so I guess that's, yeah, luckier than most for being part of the countryside. But our bodies, we're not meant to spend huge amounts of time sitting down in front of computers, maybe especially laptops if you're looking down, mobile phones, or just sitting in cars and planes commuting. So it is good for our body to have those little walks, and motion is lotion. Now you'll see in a minute I'm coming up to a rather nice looking bridge. So now the hunt begins to try and find the fastest poo stick. What I can notice is if I look around, I'm probably one of the only people here who doesn't have a Winnie the Pooh type toy with them, or isn't either with their parents or under 10 years old. But let's see what we can do, because it's a lot of fun childhood memories, this, for me. So there's been quite a lot of rain recently. Water's fairly fast moving, so gonna study the currents to find the quickest place to drop my sticks in. So in the interest of experimentation, we have a short fat stick and a long thin stick. So now is your chance to say, I'm going to drop them simultaneously. Which do you think is going to appear first? Maybe you could consider one of the sticks to be Ineos and the other to be the Kiwis. In the interest of all good media, you're going to have to tune in to the next show to see who comes first.
Oh. No, not fair.
That's what I said. You're not. Whoops! I didn't want to click on that one. I got. I wanted to click on that one. The end of the video with John. So, if you haven't been watching the show, somehow we got off into Winnie the Pooh and the Pooh story and the Pooh stick. I had no idea what a Pooh stick was myself, but we've been. Did you know that before?
No.
So it's been, of course, the Brits all know this, and of course, Meg, we read Winnie the Pooh to Meg when she was.
But you
young.
probably didn't play Pooh sticks.
We did not, but everybody else seems to know about it. And that Winnie the Pooh area, the bridge apparently where the gentleman, the author, used to describe it, does exist.
Yeah.
And it's just not 10, 15 miles from where John's family farm is, where he grew up. So when I got the video this morning, you may have heard me upstairs, and I was laughing so hard when I saw that.
Yeah.
Great coaching corner, John. Yeah, it was terrific, John. Well done.
Yeah.
And we will wait with bated breath, as Mr. Shakespeare said.
Yes.
To see who wins, the long, skinny one or the short, thick, fat one. Ashdown Forest. Yaravahi's reminding us. Yeah, perfect end of that video. Well done, John. John Emmett, the coach's corner. Get to the front of the fleet. Now, Julia, did you see Stingray's comment?
No.
During that video?
No.
He said, oh, shoot, oh, damn, oh, darn. I was hoping it was about the foxes.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
So those of you who haven't been watching Getting Up, if you're here in the States or have been watching the watch parties, we got into it the other day about foxes fornicating and the noise they make. Julia, did you give us a finger wag upstairs?
Yes.
You did. And John brought that up. I didn't bring that up. But I have found videos, YouTube videos, and of foxes fornicating. I have. I'll save them for the right moment. Okay. I hope the umpires are not involved in the poo stick, Rick.
Well, maybe they might need a little break. Why not?
Chris, Ed Worley said that. And Chris Fury said, wonderful. I still have my Winnie the Pooh books from the 1950s. Ted Ryman says, I'm a fox. That's going to get us. We're going to have a lot of fun with that. What does Mr. Fox do on John's farm? He works on his cunning stunts. Oh, come on. Stingray, that deserves, Julia.
Oh, well, it's questionable.
That was okay, enough. Great name for a band, Trent Sweeney says. Okay, I'm sorry. I am such a delinquent. I can't help
You
myself.
are.
I'm back in 7th grade, Julia.
Yes.
This day in history, on the 15th of October, this day in history, in 1860, 9 years after AC 0, 10 years before AC 1, the first defense, what happened on the 15th of October, 1860? Here is your first clue.
It's Lincoln.
That is Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president of the USA, who lived from 1809 until he was assassinated in 1865. But
Right.
what happened on this day in 1860? Fritz Mueller says the Civil War started. No.
The proper
Encore at the theater, Gordon Smith.
Oh.
No. Better than Betty Swalix. What does that mean? Civil War. Oh, yeah. Okay. I got that one, Yarvahe.
Mm-hmm.
Civil War battle on a river. No. Lincoln ended slavery. No. Here's another clue. There's another clue, Julia. Fort Sumter. No.
No.
Nominated at the Republican National Convention in Charleston. No. But this is before he was elected, actually. Okay, Julia, that's a clue. Okay, here.
Oh, he shaved.
No, he didn't shave. Just the opposite.
Oh, he
He grew a beard.
grew a beard.
Yeah, Clark Chapin got it. He got it. Clark Chapin got it. At 6'4", 6'4", 193 centimeters, Lincoln remains the tallest of America's 46 presidents. He also stands as one of the highest in esteem, according to polls of historians, politicians, and the generous public. Another noted physical feature was Lincoln's beard. He was the first president, I did not know that, to have one, and he can thank an 11-year-old girl for that distinction.
Wow.
This gal, this 11-year-old, Grace Bedell, dear sir, my father was just home from the fair and brought home your picture. I'm a little girl, only 11 years old, but want you should be president of the United States very much, so I hope you won't think me very bold to write to such a great man as you are. I don't think this was a typewritten thing. This is a handwritten thing that has been printed on a website. I have got 4 brothers, and part of them will vote for you anyway if you would let your whiskers grow. I will try and get the rest of them to vote for you. You would look a great deal better, for your face is so thin. All the ladies like whiskers, and they would tease their husbands to vote for you, and then you would be president. I must not write any more of this letter. So that was what happened on this day in history. He got the letter. I mean, remember, after he grew a beard, this is the guy who ended the Civil War, abolished slavery, and rebuilt the U.S. economy, and then, of course, was assassinated for his efforts. But it was on this day in history that this 11-year-old wrote to him about growing a beard, this day in history, the 15th of October, 1860. And Julia, with that, I would love to get your permission, because
To grow a beard?
to grow a beard. I just hate shaving, as you know, and shaving at 5 in the morning is such a pain in the...
But you don't look good with the beard.
I think I look great. And look at, if I grew a beard, maybe I would
Become president.
Become president, exactly.
Oh.
No, I'm teasing. I'm not going to do that. But I had no idea what things happen on this show. Let's get to the America's Cup. Typewritten? No, it was not typewritten. It was before the invention of typewriters, wasn't it? Grow it. I love my beard. Steve Atkins said, wouldn't it be great if being polite were still a virtue in politics?
It would.
My father, John Emmett, is saying, grew a beard to play Jesus and then kept it. Mark Holland is talking about the Lincoln-Douglas debate. Did he have the beard for the debate? I don't know. TE for Chris Fury. No, my checkered past would never sustain would never withstand the scrutiny. Let's get to the American Cup boat race. an AC37 Cup Day. We got some stuff that's happened even since we were on the air yesterday morning for our watch party. We're in follow-up there, too. Here's a video of what happened yesterday in that fourth race.
Well, it was all on from the start. Both boats so close. The Kiwis actually closer to the line, but crossing that line at pace was Ineos Britannia.
I want you to count how many times she said, there's nothing in it. There's been a lot of criticism of the commentators, Julia, for saying there's nothing in it. And Sailing Anarchy just went off on them on the front page today, and it's a little over the top, frankly. But there's nothing in it, Julia. Here, have a look.
It was neck and neck all the way up, wasn't it, to these top mark? Absolutely nothing in it. Split tack at the top gate, and the race was on. And like two, we certainly loved this, didn't we? Crossing tacks all the way down. Literally just a few meters, nothing in it in seconds between the boats. On leg three, Emirates Team New Zealand had a small gain, slightly more pressure on their side of the track. With that tiny advantage, they were able to capitalize on it and defend there.
I think it's just all the way, isn't it? Yeah, it feels that way. Nice. Oh, swear I
going 4-0 up in this America's Cup, taking the win. Emirates Team New Zealand.
Knots doing that. Oh yeah, driving out here.
On board Emirates Team New Zealand with Peter Burling and Nathan Outteridge. Peter, you pushed early in that race. It was beautifully sailed.
The starts, we ended up way later than we thought, but we did a good job getting a little trigger pull and just getting enough off that first boundary to keep in the race. But yeah, awesome race.
Yeah, congratulations, Pete. A quick word with Nathan. The British team made you work for that. You know, where do you think you made those gains, and how proud are you of the performance in that race?
Yeah, it was obviously a tight start, and we had a bit of work to do to get off the boundary on the left side, but when we had the opportunity to cross over to the right side, which we thought was pretty strong, we managed to get a little gain and get in at the top mark with the right turn there. So that was pretty much where we sort of got back into the race, and you know, I think we've made a step forward again with the performance of the boat and getting it tacking nicely. So going really well upwind. So yeah, obviously very happy with the result, and plenty to come still.
Nice work, Nathan. And just quickly back to Pete. 4-0 up. We're more than halfway through. How good does that sound?
Yeah, every win on the board's obviously a super nice one. Yeah, it felt a lot more like a boat race today than the one yesterday. Obviously, boats getting pretty close together there. So it was, yeah, nice just to keep marching forward. It feels like yeah, we're improving a lot as a group as we go through these races. Yeah, excited to keep pushing forward.
It's really clear to everyone listening, the comms are very, very cool. You must be happy with the operation of the boat right now.
Yeah, we obviously put a lot of time into optimising the way we sail, and just, yeah, really happy to see the group going out and executing, really. You know, the grinders, the cyclists behind me that probably don't get talked about a whole heap, but, you know, they're a pretty massive part of our program, just being able to deliver whatever we want. And it's, yeah, pretty cool to see us just being able to use that around the racetrack.
Okay, Peter, appreciate the time. Have a day off.
Cheers, mate.
Confirmation then of the result of race 4 and the match for the Louis Vuitton 37th America's Cup. And a closer win this time. Emirates Team New Zealand against Ineos Britannia. Ineos Britannia are coming. In the race to 7, it's now Emirates Team New Zealand 4. Ineos Britannia yet to get on the scoreboard.
Okay, I'm sorry, those of you, I'm not picking on you Brits to make you feel bad or anything by playing that. I just thought a lot of folks on here will not have seen the race yesterday or even a replay, and I try to find the best videos that are on YouTube and otherwise and play them here. And give them everybody a chance to see what's going on in the Cup, not just those of you who watch, get up early or come on in the afternoon if you're in Europe, or late at night down there in Oz and New Zealand. As much as I want Ineos to win, I really don't care where this bet is raced next. It remains a really wonderful challenge. Alan Long, I still think Ineos has a chance. That was Gordon Smith, by the way. And Alan Long still thinks Ineos has a chance for a comeback, possible win. The Kiwis can make mistakes, and most probably will. Or is it just me? Well, I don't know. We shall see. There's Dolly DeVola. Kiwi fans outnumber the Palms 100-1. ETNZ feel like it's a home game. Mm. Well, that's part of doing it in Europe instead of doing it in Auckland. We're going to talk about that in a moment, too. Okay, as Julia says, go back and read the comments because there's a lot of great comments, aren't there, Julia?
Absolutely. And I always learn a lot.
Exactly. We have such a smart group of Fozy on here. So let's do a Bravo Zulu now to Pete. Sorry, you Brits, you're not going to like this, but Pete has crossed a threshold that many people didn't think anyone would ever cross again after what Russell Coutts did. Have a look.
Tai Horo's winning streak has continued in Barcelona with a 4th straight win in the America's Cup. It's been a particularly successful start to the campaign for skipper Peter Burling, who's also broken the record for most wins as helmsman. And who better to deliver him the news than his mum? Senior correspondent Lisette Raymer reports.
When Team New Zealand crosses the line with a win, the Burling jubilation erupts. Not on the boat. Oh no, Pete is totally calm. It's his parents who wear the relief, the passion and pride.
I'll go for 7-0. I'd be happy with that. Yeah, no, that would do my nerves nicely, but there's an awful long way to go.
Today was the closest battle between the two boats so far.
Wow, what a race we have.
Not helpful for a mother's nerves.
That pre-start, my heart's beating, I can feel it.
But Burling and his team managed to maintain their perfect score, making it 4 wins from 4.
It's like Messi, really, for me. I think he's really the best sailor in the world.
Team New Zealand racing towards an historic 3rd straight America's Cup win.
You heard people calling it a 3-peat?
Yes, I saw that written down. It hadn't actually occurred to me, the 3-peat part, until I saw it written down. I thought, oh, okay.
You must be very proud.
Yeah, definitely.
The 33-year-old skipper is now officially the most successful America's Cup helmsman in modern history, with 19 race wins, surpassing Aussie legend Jimmy Spittle.
Yeah, it's cool to have the record.
It was Heather who crunched the numbers and let Pete know when he arrived back at base.
We gave him a hug and I sort of said then, by the way, my understanding that's what's happened, but yeah, he's like, oh yeah, whatever.
Tai Horo's dock-ins and dock-outs have become a favourite fan fixture. The first weekday race of the Cup still drawing a huge crowd.
It's estimated 5,000 Kiwis are currently in Barcelona to support Team New Zealand, helping to create a home away from home.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal thing to be a part of, and we're just relishing that.
Tomorrow is a day off, a chance for the team to recharge and keep fine-tuning.
Keep hammer down and just look forward to 3 more wins.
Counting down to lifting the old mug up once more.
Yeah, I saw Leo right there at the end. He had a helmet on because, as I said, did I say it in this show or I said it in the watch parties? They all kind of merged together in my own weak, tired old brain. But Leo is part of the youth team. Under the rules, and Rob Fry's told me this, that the youth team members and I guess the women's team members can't sail on the big boat. Can't transfer over, but they can sail on the boat prior to the start of racing. And Leo is, and it's a smart thing the Kiwis are doing, maybe the Brits are doing the same, is they've got Leonard Takahashi and one of the others who are good, big, strong kids, fit, are out there doing the cycloring in the pre-starts.
Pumping the batteries.
Well, not pumping the batteries, just pumping the hydraulics to get the sails in and out. But rather than using their regular race cyclors, they're using the youth team members, including our Fozy, Leonard Takahashi. So bravo Zulu to him. And I think I did see him just prior to Yeah, just prior to
We'll
the
get to talk to
end
him
of that.
later.
Yeah, we can let the dust settle, and we'll get Leo and some others on here. In other America's Cup news, we now have the video that was presented yesterday morning. I guess it was yesterday morning, maybe the afternoon before, by Richard Slater. I think it was yesterday morning in the pre-brief, showing what and why, what the umpires saw and why they called the penalty the way they did in that pre-start incident between the Brits and the Kiwis. I'm still not convinced. Are you?
Okay, I'll show you what the umpires saw. We see the anti-clockwise turn by GBR. We see both boats do a pretty aggressive turn towards each other. The umpires had New Zealand hold, GBR keep aiming a little bit longer, and then New Zealand bailing out and GBR bailing out down. They got to about between 2 and 5 metres, 2 metres between the hull and the foil and 5 metres between the foils longitudinally, and we penalised GBR. We just had a frank and fruitful discussion with people from GBR, and while they disagree, they felt that New Zealand just dialed them down. The umpires felt that when New Zealand sort of got onto a course and held, GBR then spent about roughly 2 seconds holding, if not turning up slightly, which put New Zealand in a position where they thought there'd be a contact, so New Zealand took an option to come down. The GBR believes that New Zealand just hunted them down and never gave them to keep clear. And I think where we left it is we were agreeing to disagree.
Want to explain the foils up and down, Richard?
Yeah, this version you're seeing is actually closer to live umpire, or is the live umpire software. So what you're seeing here for once is our foils. We actually get to see what the foils do. So if you notice in the boats, you've got the grey and the black inside the diamonds. So that tells us what foil's up or down and where they're going. That doesn't get put out publicly, by the way, because then some boffin in the team will work out how they're all adjusting the foils, which is a trim and sailing performance base. Umpires aren't smart enough to do that, so we're allowed to see it. So part of this turn as well, and while it's not it's not determinant to decide that New Zealand had to keep clear, but you'll see that in part of the turn, GBR swaps to their leeward foil and then lifts the windward foil up before then dropping it again. And we've been explained that has nothing, the foil shouldn't be counted, but we would sit there thinking if you're in New Zealand and you watch a boat lift a windward foil, that suggests they're going up and not down. And again, we don't sail these boats, we might be wrong, but that at the time was how we adjudicated.
Richard, that last statement there, is that a very crucial part of just where you're saying that we don't sail the boats? Is that was a bit of feedback that I had from Ben yesterday. Is there sort of a war between umpires and sailors here of how these boats are being sailed and should be sailed and what they can actually achieve and room and opportunity, and are they asking for an expansion of the time that they need to be given to dial away? Where's the argument?
Okay, it's not a war, it is always a tension. Every sailing event, it's there. And I would be crazy to think to say, oh yeah, we know exactly what these boats can do, especially in a class where we're seeing the performance parameters just on such a high trajectory. So we recognise that. And it's why when we have these meetings, we're trying to grab all the bit of data and knowledge that the umpire team can then keep improving on. So we're on a similar path. We think we can keep improving through the Cup as well. We don't want the boats to be close, and this is the discussion going, well, we don't want them close. And we're like, well, you guys keep driving into situations where they are close, and then we are sort of relying on the rules to then call it one way or another. And I think that's something. I think it's something that these boats, the rules are getting absolutely stretched as well, because these boats are doing things that normal boats don't do. But I don't think it's a war. I think it's more of when we get to these points and we're told, oh, you guys are putting us into dangerous situations. I'm thinking, well, no, we're not driving the boats into those situations. But we have a set of rules that sort of we felt it was fair enough with our knowledge to go, at one point in time, we think New Zealand should be bailing out, and they did.
Okay, well, I'm reading your comments as we went through this up here on the wall and on my comment wall. And it looks like the Brits think the Brits got done in, and the Kiwis think the call was correct, and most of the Brits think the call was not correct, except John Emmett, who thinks the call was correct. He thinks that they got it right. Clark Chapin, you're on here, Clark, and you are an umpire and a judge extraordinaire for many, many years. You understand the difference, I think, between the America's Cup rules and what's going on here. Clark? Yeah, that's what I say. John Emmett thinks the call was correct. I think he's one of the few Brits who thinks the call was correct. Did Slater have to eat British food once he was younger? He's lost a lot of weight, by the way. I did 2 or 3 campaigns with him. He's a very smart guy. He's a very honest, straightforward, trustworthy guy. Clark says, okay, I'm not an umpire. But Clark, what do you think of the call? You've seen it now. You've seen what the umpires call. You heard Richard's explanation. Do you want to venture an opinion or not? If you don't want to, then it's okay. Julia, while Clark's clicking and clacking on his keyboard, do you want to venture an opinion?
For what it's worth, I can understand why they were concerned, but they didn't have the graphics to go with it.
Fair enough. Pedro Foiling Sayer, the big fella, meaning Ian Murray. That was Julie, you asked me who that was next to Richard. This is, I think, the morning briefing when the media are there. This is about 9 in the morning when racing's at 2 in the afternoon, maybe 10 in the morning. And Ian Murray, who's been the regatta director now since, I guess, 2013, maybe before that.
Remember him. Yeah.
And he sailed back in the 80s and was the Kookaburra skipper in 87 when they lost to Dennis. And he's a hell of a good guy and a great sailor, one of Australia's best sailors in this generation. And he's a very fair-minded, decent guy. But he was sitting there like the Sphinx. He was stone-faced.
Yes.
You didn't see a change of countenance.
No.
You didn't see anything. And I know Ian pretty well, as do a lot of you here on the show. And it'll be interesting to see what you think he was saying. Yeah, the watch says a little after 11 a.m. Okay, so maybe it's at 11 in the morning, 3 hours before they do it. Anybody else care to take a view? Clark Chapin? Yeah, okay, he's just referring to the 11th commandment, never speak ill of your political party and of an international judge. Gordon Smith, in these boats, there needs to be consideration of the ability to react in the time and space available. ETNZ determined to bring both boats into a situation that it could have ended the AC. I don't think Gordon agrees with the call. TNZ didn't give enough room for GBR's evasive maneuver. Graham Sweeney, a Brit, also doesn't agree with the call. Ted Ryman, who is a Brit, says it was a correct call and a smart move by New Zealand. Well, we knew it was coming sooner or later. They've been talking about it. We know what the Brits have done every time, and they sort of telegraphed their maneuver. So it's a bit of a worry, Julia.
Yep.
Here's my problem with this. And I've watched that, as you can imagine, as a key guy in the inventing of umpiring before it was electronic umpiring when we were out on the water. And now that it's electronic umpiring, they can even see better what is going on. And knowing Richard, as I know Richard, and he's a real Boy Scout, he might look a little soft-spoken and a little like he doesn't believe his own he's not too sure of his decision. That's Richard. He's very cautious, and he always would come across that way. I'd go out there and say, "Oh, we were right, goddammit, here's why, and this and that." You all know me. And Ian, I think you can't tell what he's thinking because he was, as several of you observed, Stingray and others, he was sitting there like the proverbial cigar store Indian. So can you say that anymore, cigar store Indian, or is that politically incorrect?
It depends on who you're talking to.
The day after Indigenous Peoples Day here in the state. So I think Richard probably believes firmly, without coming on too strongly, he believes firmly that they were right. But my problem, and I think I agree with Gordon Smith, I think the problem is the Kiwis dialed them down. And before they dialed down, it looked like the Kiwis were going to go astern of the Brits, no problem.
Yeah.
And there wasn't going to be an incident, so the Brits weren't reacting. And I don't know about the whole foil thing up and down, but that's obviously an issue as well. Then the Brits definitely dialed them down some more. And now the Brits, to use John's expression, must have been a bit puckered, or that's my expression, must have been squeaky bum time in the Brit boat. Well, now they realize they're kind of going on bow to bow at speed, at pace. And the Brits realizing, of course, they're on port tack and they've been dialed down by the Brits. They got to do something with their foil, and they've got to either decide to go up. They got to go up above the Brits now, go above them, or they got to turn and go into this, this whole thing coming. I should be doing it over on the other camera, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think the Brits double dialed. I think the Kiwis dialed, and then they dialed some more. And at that point, I think the Brits were entitled to what we call protection. That is, they have some reasonable amount of time to react and to try to keep clear. And in my mind, when I saw it the first time, and now when I've seen it repeatedly, I think the Brits were not given the requisite amount of time to keep clear. And I think what they did, given the continual dial down, to turn like this was a reasonable thing to do. I'll go back over here to camera 2.
Yeah.
I think that was a reasonable thing to do, what they did. And God knows it was close. They were, the foil arms were interlocked, if that's the right word. But they were close. And then to correct something that John Emmett and I were saying on the show the other day on the watch party for the fourth race, when this had happened the day before, there were protest flags from both boats. They greened the British one and upheld the protest of the Kiwis. So I don't think the umpires were fumbling around trying to decide whether or not, and I don't think they've mistakenly greened the Brits, or I don't think they greened the Kiwi penalty. I think they greened they disallowed the Brit protest, and then they accepted the Kiwi protest. So I can't even explain it clearly. So my view is that they did not, the Kiwis, they turned and they not only dialed once, but then they dialed again. It was a double dial. And on that second dial, now the Brits have got some protection, some amount of protection to try to do something. And at that point, I guess the reasonable thing to do is to continue to bear away. And they went side to side, and it could have ended the Cup. But it was, as Gordon Smith points out, it was the Kiwis who made it close. It's the Kiwis who kept it close. It's the Kiwis who created the incident. And as long as the Brits did something reasonable and timely to react to try to keep clear, they should get, again, what we umpires call protection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in my view, I think this penalty, this incident either should have been greened. You can, even though there's an infringement by one or the other, the umpires still have the right to green it, but they can throw their hands in the air and say, well, we're really not sure if there was an infringement, or if there was, who infringed.
Yeah.
So it either should have been greened, or they should have penalized the Kiwis for the double dial down and making it too close. Julia.
It did determine the end of the race, though.
It determined the race, yeah. I mean, now they're 75 meters behind up the first leg.
Mm-hmm.
And you could argue, well, don't get too excited about this because the Kiwis have won all the races, whether or not there was a pre-start penalty or not. But that's not the point. The point is whether the call was right and what would you do in the future. And if you're the rules advisor, if you're Ian Williams, advising the afterguard of the Brits, what advice would you give them? I go back to Gordon Smith's comment. In these boats, there needs to be consideration of the ability to react in time and the space available. Yeah, I think I agree with Gordon. And some of you will find that amazing that he and I agree on much of anything. But
Oh, no, no.
the Brits, sorry, Steve Gruber, the Kiwis dialed down the Brits. It wasn't the other way around. The starboard tack boat, the right-of-way boat dialed down the port tack boat, which was the Brits. What are we other comments here? There's so many comments, wonderful comments. The Swiss did not get protection against the Brits when they were dead in the water well, they should have. What are the rules for other foiling boats? Again, with these Crutonic boats, the rules need scrutiny. Alan Long, I agree with you as well. But to be fair, I think Richard Slater and his team of umpires have been going over the rules ad nauseum with the afterguards of the teams, with the rules advisors. And I think it's it's not for lack of effort on the part of the umpires and Ian Murray and the teams. AC have their own set of rules. Yes, John Emmett, they do. But what I'm describing also applies in the AC and match racing. There came a point, Graham Sweeney says, where the Brits could do nothing else. The Kiwis still had options. Yeah, well, they're both trying to keep clear and avoid a collision at that point, and they both magnificently
did that.
I mean, they did well. Okay, we beaten this to death.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. It's Crutonic to be having this discussions. Umpires are correct, John. Why are you so adverse to having a discussion about things? Whether the umpires are correct or not is not the point. It's what other people think, and maybe they're not correct. So, if you don't want to hear the discussion, go sign off and go film your poo sticks, John. Jesus, this is National Grumpy Day. I can get grumpy with even my dear friend John Emmett. Okay, now there's this other thing, this Sir Ben Ainsley thing that I put up on my Facebook page. And some of you thought maybe I was losing my touch by being half a world away and not knowing what's going on. Well, I posted this after that incident where Sir Ben had called Stephen McIver, called him an effing wanker. And I posted this on my Facebook page, as hundreds of you saw. Sir Ben deserves a medal for calling out Stephen McWanker. Bravo Zulu. And I welcome John's input any time of the day. Exactly right. So I welcome all the Fozie's input any time of the day. So I posted this on my Facebook page in reaction to that incident during Sunday's race, because I had heard that there had been, and this was not public, I had heard that there was a Rule 69 either being contemplated or had in fact been filed, and in fact there was, and we found out about it this morning. Here first is the video, not the whole incident, but of kind of what was going on in the end of the interview with Stephen McIver. I won't call him McWanker, at least not yet, again, and Sir Ben Ainsley.
Well, maybe that's the Kiwi commentator in you, mate. Okay, I'll take that one on the chin. Thanks, buddy.
This is where he stood up and said, "You effing wanker," and it came across on the mics, and I'm sitting here pushing the buttons and talking and with John Emmett and so on the watch party, and I didn't hear it in my earbud, but a lot of you did, and immediately put it in the comments that he called him an effing wanker.
That's a consideration too, because he didn't say it purposely on air.
Well, here, put your mic up again in front of your mouth. I'm losing your audio here. I got to keep pushing your audio. Say that again.
That ought to be considered, because it didn't purposely say it on air.
Well, he didn't purposely say it on air, but the fact remains he did say it, and some people apparently took offense.
Yes.
Because a Rule 69 was filed. It's a report, Clark Chapin is reminding us. Yes, it's a report, not a protest, but that's a technical. You being a judge, Clark, that is a technicality. I mean, in effect, somebody was protesting to the arbitration panel the fact that Ben called him an effing wanker, and also protesting something. Well, I won't get into that.
And Gordon Smith says, "My wife and I have a Rule 69. Apparently, I have no appeal either."
So here is the decision that was handed down overnight. They actually heard this. And yeah, it is strange, John Emmett, that we don't know who filed it, because The rules were changed a few years ago. Clark Chapin defends this rule change. I think it's horrific. Andrew McIrvin thinks it's horrific, among others. But this report, okay, we call it a protest, but it's a report, Clark Chapin technically correctly calls it, was filed with the ARB panel, and they decided it in pretty quickly, and here's what they said. The ARB panel has received information contained in a report claiming that misconduct had occurred in contravention of Rule 69, which is our sportsmanship conduct rule, and the America's Cup Edition version 4.07 of the AC rules, which is roughly the same as the regular rules. At the conclusion of race 3 on the 13th of October, in an on-water post-race interview with Sir Ben Ainslie, in a live broadcast, Stephen McIvor, the interviewer, said, quote, "Are you still believing you're as close when it comes to performance as I get that feeling coming off your boat?" Ben, "Well, maybe that's the Kiwi commentator in you, mate." Stephen McIvor, interviewer, "Okay, I'll take that one on the chin. Thanks, buddy." And then after the interview had been completed, and as Ben was exiting the cockpit, he said, "You effing wanker." Now, I believe that to be a true transcript of what actually happened. I think Ben didn't hear the actual, I think McIvor was trying to be polite. He's saying, "Are you still believing you're as close when it comes to performance, that you're as close to the Kiwis in performance as I get that feeling from the audio coming off your boat?" He was trying to be kind of positive and upbeat, actually. But if you're Ben and you're upset and you've just lost the race and you've had the penalty in the pre-start and you have this yo-yo coming on asking you, "Hey, how's your performance? Do you still believe in it?" I might think he was a wanker too. And I probably wouldn't have said it because I don't know. But Fog Machine says it's a wanker in a teapot. This is a tempest in a teapot. Julia?
Gordon Smith says, in both cases, it's the responsibility of the broadcaster. The comments were not intended for broadcasting.
They were not intended for broadcast, and that's true. Well, the bottom line is the arbitration panel did the right thing for, I think, all the reasons we're discussing, including Julia's last comment. The ARB panel considers that in the particular circumstances of this case, the words used by Ben, and there was also an issue about Peter using a coarse language that they did not, in a previous race, did not break racing rules AC 69. The arbitration panel determines that neither Ben nor Peter committed misconduct under the rule. The broadcast has not caused widespread offense and has not brought the sport into disrepute, which are prerequisites for acting under Rule 69. Accordingly, the ARB panel has determined that the matter is not referred, which is why Clark Chapin rightfully calls it a report. It's a report that then would get referred to an event disciplinary investigating officer under World Sailing's disciplinary, which is also ridiculous. This bureaucracy is just ridiculous. Hear it and decide it is what they should be doing. The ARB panel reminds all those competing in the 37th America's Cup match that what they say on board may be broadcast live and that they have an obligation not to commit misconduct. Julia?
I just rejoice in seeing my good friend David Tillett on that panel.
He stayed here at the Beach Street Yacht Club, right?
Yes.
David's a good guy. Graham McKenzie from New Zealand. Brian Willis, who's also a Fozy, been on this show a handful of times.
In fact, he was here at his very first outing as a judge.
David Tillett.
Yeah.
Right here.
Right here.
In San Francisco.
Yeah.
Well, he's a long time. He's been on the America's Cup jury. He's been on the Olympic jury. He's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Richard Gladwell, who sent through that report. Otherwise, I would not have seen it prior to the show, so we could get it to you to discuss. And that is where the whole thing now stands. I did want to update you since, it was an incident. And if we hadn't updated, you'd say, hey, there was an arbitration. Several of you did send it through subsequently. We need to respect the umpire's jury. Of course we do, John Emmett. David Tillett, absolute incredible man, Adrian Finglass is saying. I think Adrian is an Aussie as well. It helped the viewer ratings and media coverage. Grant Dalton would have approved, Andy Cox in Bermuda saying. Okay, in other America's Cup news, an article in the New Zealand Herald this morning has shown up in response to the chatter going on about the next event probably going to the Middle East. And this was the Mr. Denora interview in the Italian press that we told you about last Friday. Well, a guest editorial showed up in the New Zealand Herald today. The headline, America's Cup, is there any hope for the next edition to be held in Auckland, by our Fosie and King's Counsel, James Farmer. The key points, as summarized by the New Zealand Herald of this guest editorial: Team New Zealand's decision to take the America's Cup to Barcelona sparked widespread debate among Kiwis. A third of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron's membership resigned, putting the organization in financial difficulty. Well, I'd blame that on the leadership of the RNZ more than anything else. For letting it go to Barcelona. Team New Zealand CEO Grant Dalton has defended the Barcelona decision.
But it wasn't his decision.
No, it was the Yacht Squadron's decision.
Yeah.
But they let him make the decision, and that was that. In this interview for the Herald, Dalton took the opportunity, a note to it, took the opportunity to defend Barcelona by asserting that New Zealand had suffered financially from COVID to a greater extent than anywhere else in the world, and to an extent that, quote, it was impossible to have the cup in New Zealand financially, unquote, a view that is hard to sustain, Jim Farmer asserts, given the offer of further public money of $100 million, public money, increased further by the offer of $40 million from Mark Dunphy, who you'll remember was also on the show a couple times during that period when they were trying to raise money and keep the cup in New Zealand.
Yep.
Jim Farmer goes on to say in the same interview, Dalton then rather undermined his financial justification by providing a further standalone reason, namely that, quote, for the cup to grow, and as our responsibility as the defender, it had to be in Europe. Oh, unquote. None of that suggests that serious consideration will be given to the next America's Cup, which Dalton says could be held within the next 2 years. Very little consideration to it being held in Auckland. In fact, Mr. Denora, in that article in the Italian press, said it's either going to be in Barcelona again, who are ready to do it, although the protest over the past weekend by 1,000 or so people, it's not necessarily a very popular event in Barcelona either.
No.
And the leadership in Barcelona, the mayoral leadership, has changed as well. But it looks like it's going to the Middle East. And Mr. Farmer wrapped up this, and again, an excerpt. Well, that's it. That's today's New Zealand Herald, Fosie Jim Farmer's guest editorial. And that was sent to me by a lot of you, even during the show. So it's there. It does not look like the cup is going to return if the Kiwis win, or otherwise, to New Zealand.
And
Rob Fry is just kind of, okay, no big deal. He's yawning. He's you know, they've got Rob's kid is involved in this, so he just wants to be sure his kid continues to be involved, right, Rob? Mm-hmm. The Palestine protest was bigger than the AC protest, Yarvahe is saying. And yeah, I didn't put a lot of stock in it. I put the picture up on my Facebook page. But Yar is also saying the Cup's future will be pimped forever now. Gordon Smith reminding that Dunphy didn't actually offer hard cash. Remember, he refused to commit to the amount when we asked him. Yes, we asked him here on this show.
Yeah.
So New Zealand just not putting up the money, meaning the country, meaning the city, not putting up the money. So I guess the end of story, John Emmett is saying, Jeff Kitson, I still prefer defend at your home waters, as do I, Jeff. Mm-hmm. And Gordon Smith saying it should also be said that there is no space in cows to base the teams, so that doesn't seem like a realistic option if the Brits win. Okay, enough of all that. Without yacht clubs involved, it's just an eBay auction to the highest Jeddah bidder.
Yes, I agree with that.
Comments are rolling in here now, including Rhode Island Rover, who says, take it back to Newport. Gee, is there anywhere? Okay, I'm not going to read all these comments. Yeah, it already has been pimped. Well, Valencia wasn't really a pimp job, to be fair to Ernesto Bertorelli, Rob Fry, because they couldn't run it in Switzerland. They couldn't run it in the lakes. It was not going to be possible to do that. So they put it out to bid. 60 bids in Europe, 60 cities in Europe bid for it. and Valencia. It came down to Valencia and Lisbon, Portugal, and it went to Valencia, and Valencia did a nice job. Put on a nice regatta in 07, and had Ernesto not come up with the CNEV, Club Náutico Español de Vela, as their fake challenger record, they would have never lost in court to us and had the 2010D to gift match. That was not a smart thing to do, and everybody learned from that. Hopefully it won't happen again. I think it's headed like golf, tennis, and motorsport to the Middle East, for better or worse, and it's not necessarily going to be Jeddah. It might be Bahrain, it might be Abu Dhabi, it might be Dubai, it might be the little emirate up on top called Ras Al Khaimah, although I rather doubt that. Yarvahe saying, and he's there, he's saying a senior Royal Yacht Squadron member is poo-pooing any notion of an AC event anywhere in Britain. Can always find space in Newport, Rhode Island. Yeah, well, the Americans are not going to win this one. Okay. Anything else, Julia?
Go back to the Royal Court conversation. What's that about?
I don't know. We're 2 hours into the show. I'm tired. Let's wrap it up here.
Good idea.
Shall we? I got one more video to play, though. It's a good one, and I think you all will enjoy it. Thanks for hanging out with us to the bitter end here. This is the last leg, and it's a video by North Sails. I just thought to end this kind of on a positive, upbeat. North Sails have been involved in the Cup since the 70s, and they've just put out a video about the Cup and the history of the Cup and sail making in the Cup, and of course it's a bit of a promotion for North Sails, but I think you will really enjoy our last leg video for today. Courtesy of North Sails.
How many cups? I've done 5 cups, starting off in 1983 here in Newport, Rhode Island. People ask me how I started sailing and how I got to America's Cup level. I came from a very different kind of background. A traditional background is sailing dinghies and then sailing kind of high performance skiff type boats and then getting into the America's Cup through the performance side. I grew up, I learned to sail sailing bigger boats. So I was very comfortable with the kind of the slower but more mechanical, more physical style of sailing. I actually started sailing 12 metres in 1981, 2 years before the 83 Cup.
I tell you what, any boss who sacks anyone for not turning up today is a bum.
Best memory from the Cup was the win here in 83 with Australia 2.
Australia 2, skippered by John Bertrand, wins the America's Cup, breaking the longest winning streak in sports history of 132 years.
Although I was just reserved with them because I came here in 83 as a 22-year-old with Advance, with Ian Murray, with Sid Fisher funding out of Sydney, and just an unbelievable experience when you're 22 years old to come to the home of the America's Cup. We were a relatively early exit, but we learned a lot along the way, a bunch of really tight young guys who were very, very dedicated and to learn and learn and learn and soak up as much as we could. And Australia 2 took advantage of us, and we ended up the training partner for Australia 2 using Challenge 12, which was the third of the Australian boats, and went out every day, trained against them, got them up to speed, and then came back and then watched the racing on the TV, or was lucky enough to go out on one of their boats and watch the racing. So we were part of it the whole way through, and so for sure that final race and being here in Newport and enjoying the 4 to 5 months that we had lead up and then culminating and actually taking the Cup away from Newport was pretty darn special, being 22 years old.
Seems a problem on One Australia. The boat has snapped in two.
Well, my toughest one is pretty easy. It was with One Australia when our boat broke in half and sank in San Diego, racing Team New Zealand.
Could it go down? But look how quickly the boat is being sucked into the Pacific. This is incredible.
We left in the morning with all the positivity of, beating up on the Kiwis, ending up, becoming challengers for the Cup, and came back without a boat. still involved with the America's Cup, but obviously not specifically sailing. My last America's Cup was in 2007 with BMW Oracle in Valencia, and when the Cup went off into the multi-hull environment, I decided to kind of retire myself out because I just didn't have the skill set, so rejoined back with North Sails at that time. And then today, my involvement with the America's Cup is very much at the kind of the strategic level. I work very closely with the teams and making sure that North Sails is providing all the resources and product they need to have successful programs in Barcelona. The simple answer to why does the Cup have the attraction for everyone from the competitors like myself the whole way through to the public watching, it's the Everest of sailing. In my mind, I think very simplistically, there's two pinnacles of sailing. There's the Olympic level, high performance, discipline. The America's Cup always been a technology game to me. It'll always be there. I don't see the brand of the America's Cup ever going away. There's always going to be people, passionate individuals, and then passionate countries who are behind the event. And the fastest boat has always won the America's Cup. The fastest team, which is the fastest equipment, the fastest sailors, fastest package. And North Sails plays an incredibly important part of that because we're the engine above the deck. We're the driving force. You've got the hydro side that's under the water, and then you've got the aero side, which is above the water. North Sails has prided itself, its DNA, starting back with Leono North. You've got to be faster to win.
Bravo, Zulu. Good video. Thanks, North Sails. I thought that was a nice way to wrap this show up, don't you think, Julia?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Good video. And Paul Westlake, with whom I did those BMW Oracle campaigns, is a peach of a guy. He's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And terrific. John Emmett, I prefer NZL Maine. Okay, they're talking about sales. Let's don't talk anymore about sales. Let's talk about Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. As we got a couple here, Julia. Now this one may get a finger wag from you. It's from
I'm ready.
It's from Alistair. It's from Alistair Murray. He sent this along. I thought it was pretty clever. He's tapping away at his computer. Create a new password. So the guy types in PENIS. Tap, tap, tap. And the computer comes back. Sorry, your password isn't long enough.
That's just silly.
Huh?
That's just silly.
Silly. Okay, Julia doesn't approve. Ted Ryman, he likes us. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, enough of this. Julia, that was sent in by Alistair. This one I'm not sure. I got from several people. I'm not sure who sent this one in, but this is us. Lights, camera, fiction, says the floor manager. Not action, fiction, talking to the presenter, or
Yes.
the, as we would say in this country, the anchor. And now we're talking, I don't know what Ryman's talking to. I think he's talking to that that penis joke. And then finally, we got to ask if anybody wants to adjust their predictions here. What better place to do it than in Whiskey Tango Foxtrot? Julia, our predictions there. You were 7-5. 7 wins to the Kiwis, 5 for the Brits. I said 7-2, so we'll put ourselves out there up front. Julia, do you want to adjust your prediction now that we're 4 races in?
I do, but I'm not going to.
You're going to stick with 7-5. Bannero is saying 7-1. I don't remember what his previous prediction was. Thanks for that, Rick. John Winder, thank you. John, I've forgotten if it's Winder or Winder. I think it's Winder. Remind me, please. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, Rob Fry. Yarvahe he thinks I'm closer. I think the Brits are going to still win. I think they're going to win a race or two. I think my prediction is looking pretty darn good. And maybe they'll win more. ETNZ, Chris Fury is agreeing with me. Ted Ryman thinks it's a whitewash, a 7-0, a whitewash, or a, what do you call that? Not a white, there's another better word for it than whitewash. A sweep.
Sweep.
A 7-2 is sort of a gentleman's sweep. They call it in some sports. Let's not prolong the agony. I need my beauty sleep, fog machine.
Yeah.
Okay, from my heart, not my head. This is her heart. 7-4 Brits. Joe Holtzman, 7-0. Jamie Hutchison still cheering for Britannia, a.k.a. Rita. Rick thinks his prediction was 7-3. Now it's what? What'd you say, Rick? 7-1? Yeah, he said 7-1, so he's modified his prediction. Fritz Mueller, look at that. He thinks it's going to be 7-6. NZL 7-6, a hockey term, a sweep. It's not donuts for the Brits. See you in less than 14 hours, John Emmett. Yeah, John, I appreciate your contributions to our early morning, in the middle of your afternoon. Yep, I'm still saying 7-2, Julia. Sounds like you're comfortable with 7-5 still.
I'm not comfortable with it. I think it's going to be more, but I'm keeping it anyway.
You think it's going to be closer to 0 than 5 in terms of the Brits. Okay.
I'm afraid.
Well, we don't have any more wankers to talk about. We don't have any more foxes to talk about. We got to get off the air here and be ready at 0500 tomorrow, our time, 0800 East Coast, 1200 UTC. Fishbeck, 7-1. Yeah, that's probably
right.
That could be right as well. I'm going to stick with 7-2. I think that's right. More races, more dollars, Fitzmiller saying. Yeah, okay. And Stingray is a fair point. The racing has been getting tighter and tighter.
Yes.
The delta at the end of yesterday's race 4 was not all that tight, but the racing, at least for the first couple legs, has been. So no more Rule 69s. Let's hope. Let's get us to the finish line for this one. Show 772. Julia, you were a witness.
Yes. Good time to like, follow, and share.
Indeed.
And people who like and follow us get immediate notice anytime we go in air.
Exactly. If they click the notification bell.
Right.
They desperately want the show to end on Saturday. Mark Holland is saying, well, we'll see when it ends. Steve Atkins, see you tomorrow, Commodore. Atkins, thank you. I'll have a good breakfast, Tom, so I won't be grumpy today. I haven't had much to eat today, as you can tell, but I can't eat before these shows. I don't know how other people do it. I've never been able to. Heidi, thanks to you. Thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody who gives us $1 or $2 or more per month. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We really do appreciate your support. We appreciate those who let us have video, audio, and images for these shows, including and especially today. A lot of topics in this show, mostly related to the America's Cup, but I think we covered the waterfront pretty well today. Thanks for a good discussion about racing and understanding the rules. Ed Worley, thanks to you and to Graham Sweeney and Gordon Smith and John, especially for your joining via Zoom in these early morning sessions. We'll do it tomorrow at 0500. Our upcoming schedule tomorrow at 0500. Thursday is a reserve day, no racing unless they don't get both races in tomorrow, Wednesday. Friday, more racing at 0500 Pacific, which of course we won't do the rest of the times, but you know the times locally to yourselves. And no regular show Friday afternoon. We got too much on between these others. I think it is going to go through to Saturday. We shall see. I hope it does. So we're not going to do our regular show Friday afternoon at 1300 to give my voice and my typing show preparation fingers a break. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We hope to see you tomorrow at 0500. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day or a good sleep. And we'll see you in the morning at 0500. Sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.